Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Stop.Sit.Surrogate with Kennedy and Ellen.
Hi, everybody.
We have a wonderful guest today, and we are going to let her introduce herself. She came on and was a brave soul, and we just had a one-on-one Friday Facts with her.
We did.
So would you?
Very enlightening.
But now her journey is complete. So do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. So my name is Mary Johnson. I've been married to my husband for about 10 years. We live in California. I have 3 babies, a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old. I'm just kind of your average homeschooling, cake decorating, birth doula on the side.
I love it. I love it. Mary, how did you find out about surrogacy?
Yeah.
You know what? I was trying to think about that. And honestly, I feel like there was not just like this like ping moment. It was just I saw things like Phoebe on Friends, or I love the movie Baby Mama. Again, it's not very accurate, but
it's still
it's a good laugh.
It's a great laugh.
Yep.
Great laugh.
But yeah, I really enjoyed being pregnant. I loved the whole birth process. And so it was kind of just like a win-win. Like, I think I'm done with my family, but I can be pregnant for someone else and help someone else. So
How was your husband with all of that?
well, that's the funny thing.
Yeah.
So I mentioned it after our second. And I just casually, just put out there, like, I'm not ready now. I don't think our family's complete, but like, what are your thoughts? And he was very adamant of just basically, hell no.
Right.
If that's something you really need to pursue, like we need counseling, or basically like we're done. Not that we would be done, but he was like that's how adamant I am. And I was like, oh, well, shoot, like you're more important to me than possibly pursuing this. So, let's just be done with it. I didn't know you had such strong feelings.
What did he express? What his strong feeling was, like, where it was coming from?
Yeah, well, I feel so at that point we were not in a very great place. We after that went through a really, really rocky time, and then since then, got so much closer. So I think that was a big issue, was just like we were not super close. And so kind of like, why would you bring this other experience into this, especially like you just had a kid? So I kind of just dropped it. But then I think it was after our third, he just knew that I loved birth still. And he was like, okay, I'm open to learn more about it. And I was like, say no more. Here's all the stuff. Here's the articles. Here's everything I've learned. I want to do this. And very quickly he got on board once he was good.
Wow. Huh. That's so sweet. So then how old? Okay, so wait, hold on. So then how old were your kids then when you started?
Let's see. I started in January of 22. So my daughter, my youngest, had just turned a year, or was about to turn a year.
God.
She was about to turn a year.
Wow.
That's
littles.
I can relate to that. My son had just turned 1, and I was like, time to have a baby for somebody else now.
Exactly.
Exactly.
It's still fresh.
On top of that, right? You had a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. That's a lot.
Wow.
It was a lot. They're a lot.
Oh, but they're cute.
I love them.
Really cute.
They're really cute, but yeah.
But your husband came around to it, and like, did he like need to like talk to anybody at the agency? Like, did he have any concerns for like you being pregnant for somebody else, or like any of like I don't know, Mom. I just know that my dad felt the very same way that your husband felt, and so like,
yeah.
There was a kid. I have no idea what went on, but she can relate.
Divorce talk when I said I'm doing it, whether you want me to or not. I don't need you, but I did need him to sign a paper, and I was like, no, I'm doing it. And it drove a wedge. And then once I did it and I was in, and then he just was like, okay, I'm going to support you because you're my wife. But that wasn't the correct way to go about it for anybody listening. Yeah, I'm going to have their full support, because crap can go down. I pretty much did die on that one and were resuscitated. So he could have lost me. They could have lost their mom. Like, there's a lot that goes into it. That it's just not, they're just not there for like, rah, rah, cheer, cheer. Yeah, you're doing great. Yeah, no, there's a lot more than that.
Yeah. Yeah. And any emotional stuff that comes up
Right.
during the process. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
anything. Yeah, exactly. That's what I was like, I
Yeah.
need you to be on
Mhm.
board.
Yeah.
So, because
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not about to, yeah. And I feel like just like any kind of resentment that could come up from that, if you're having a really rough day, that's like, well, you chose this, you know what
Right.
I mean?
Yep. Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, no, that's not, no. But
Yeah.
yeah, so what I did was, because I wanted to learn more. I had two people that I knew that had been at least 2 times surrogates. I believe one of them went on for a third journey. But one of them I was able to talk in person. And when she loved it and wanted to talk. And so I was like, hey, would you be down to meet up with me and Dave? And I just want to ask like literally all the questions. Don't hold anything back. Don't sugarcoat anything.
Yeah.
And she did, she came over, she answered. I don't think Dave had any questions. I had my whole long list of, and I'm like taking notes.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so that was really helpful. So after that, he was like, yeah, I'm on board. Yeah, I'm good if you want to pursue this, and I'll support you and all that. So
I love that. That's great then. So he came around to it. So
yeah.
what?
How did you pick the agency?
Well, so I first went because I was like, where do I even start? So the friend that I was able to talk to in person, I asked her, where did you go to, or what agency? And so she sent me hers. So that was the first one that I reached out to. And I had like filled out the whole application, and I had my phone interview, and we were kind of going down the list of things. And when it came to termination preferences,
Yeah.
she just was like, oh no, I'm sorry. Like we can't accept you because of those preferences.
You're
Yeah.
kidding.
What were those
Yeah.
preferences? Can you
Well,
share?
mom, don't
Oh.
invade her privacy.
Sorry.
No, I don't mind. I'm an open book. If it's my story, I don't care. I'll
Okay.
share
I can't
anything.
believe, but I can't believe an agency would turn somebody
No,
away for that. I can't believe
you're
that.
fine. Well, yeah, exactly. And that's what they were like. Everything was checked out. Like you'd be prime. Like we could match you immediately. But my preference was, excuse me, was that I didn't want termination unless the baby was not viable with life, and suffering or suffering.
Okay.
Then I would,
Fair.
100% support termination. But as far as
Yeah.
like chromosomal abnormalities, like I have a little sister who's Downs,
Oh.
and yeah, exactly. And so it's like it's just really
That's it,
special,
yeah.
and knowing that it's my body and I would not be able to control that, giving full reign to the parents, which
Yeah.
I get that parents would not want that. So much of the control has been taken from them.
Mhm.
And then to again be like, well, we can't choose, we can't choose to terminate if not. But it was still a really big blow. I just figured maybe it would take longer to match, but they were just
Yeah.
like, no, we just don't have any parents that would match with you.
Amazing. In
So I was
2022,
like,
2020,
yeah,
oh, wow.
2022. Yeah.
Yeah, because
So
usually I would hear like, oh, like, because I know people who believe the same way, and so
mhm.
it would take longer because it's just
Yeah.
like, sure, or maybe it's quick because there are people who it's all about match, but to hear an agency
Yeah.
turn you down,
Just
that's
say
just like
no. Yeah.
so sad.
And you
I-
weren't, and it wasn't like you had a definitive no.
Exactly.
You had an exception there that
Mhm.
which I think is reasonable in the big world. It depends, but
Yeah.
wow, I'm really, really shocked in 2022
Yeah.
that was a deal breaker.
Well, and it wasn't even just one agency; it was 4 agencies total.
No, it wasn't,
kidding?
Mary.
Mhm. I don't even remember the names of all of them, honestly, because so that was such a big blow. I was like,
That's
oh,
so
well,
weird.
dang, like I can't even be a surrogate. Like my journey's going to be over before it even starts. So once I had a good cry and I was like, okay, I gotta pick myself back up. I got to do this. I just like Googled and I just was checking, like calling, but I learned that I was like, I'm not going to waste my time filling out applications.
Right.
So I just
Yeah,
set
yeah.
up phone interviews.
Good.
And as soon as they answered, I was like, hey, I don't want to waste either of our time. Here are my termination preferences. What do you think? And yeah, no, so many of them were like, no, we can't take you.
Really?
So I was like, well, dang, I like, what do other people do if with these
Yeah.
preferences?
Uh-huh.
And then the second friend that I talked to, I was talking to her via Instagram because she doesn't live here. She told me the agency she went with, and I was like, okay, I'll try them. And they were like, yeah, no, we'll take you. They said the same thing. Like it might just take longer, but we're down. Like so long as you meet everything else, we're good. So I was like, I'm back in the game.
Yeah.
No, thanks
But
for
how
being vulnerable on
crazy.
that one. Yeah, sorry. I just, I go off on
Yeah.
tangents, but that's a big deal. 4 agencies turned you down because of that. That's weird.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. It was really discouraging, honestly.
Yeah. Can you think?
Yeah.
You want to do this wonderful selfless thing and boom.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
Okay.
getting doors
Jeez.
shut in your face.
Exactly. Yeah. So I was like, well, maybe I'm just not supposed to do this.
Well, I admire
No.
your perseverance. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
well, I'm stubborn. I'm stubborn as an ox, as my husband said. when
Hey,
I set my
most of
mind
us
for
are.
it.
it's, it comes in handy. It really does.
Yeah.
Being stubborn
does.
comes in handy. Not all the time, but sometimes.
It's not giving up on your principles. Like I literally signed it away. I said, yep, they get to decide because I wanted to be a surrogate so bad. And then we came with the triplets. They wanted to terminate and I freaked out. I'm like, why? Why do you want to take one of them away? So there's both sides of that story. I was the yes girl and I'm like, if I had to do it all over again, no.
Yeah.
I would have preferences.
Yeah. Well, and it's so hard because there was a time where I was just like crying to my husband and I was like, I really want to do this. Like, what are the chances that it's going to happen?
Right. Well,
Exactly. And he supported me and he was like, well, what do you think? Like, would you be comfortable checking that box? And I was just like, no, I'm not. I'm compromising.
because if that's something that you don't want to compromise, because you say like, what are the chances? But because we say, what are the chances? And the chance now is much higher because we're saying, what are the chances? Like, it's not going to happen to me. And we all know we can't say that.
Never thought I would
Exactly.
be in the position to even hear the word reduction coming from the agent. Never in a million years thought it was going to happen, especially with the transfer of crappy eggs. And you're like, yeah, well, we're not pregnant. Okay. And then boom, they start talking about it right when they find out there's 3 heartbeats. You're like, wait a minute. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
okay, wait. So speaking of eggs, how many were hold on, I'm gonna back it up a little. How did you get matched?
Yeah.
Well, it honestly was not as long as I had anticipated. So I think I found my agency let me see, I wrote it all down because I have a horrible memory.
Oh, same.
I think it was like maybe February or March was when I started signing on with them. It was probably February. And I was sent my intended parent profile in July. So not that long. Well, and I didn't go live until the beginning of May because I was still nursing my daughter and I had to be done nursing her because I couldn't start any IVF meds or anything.
That's great.
That's
2 months.
great. That's 2 months.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Dreams.
Yeah.
Dreams. Oh my gosh. So, I always am interested to know how agencies do things. So were you given profiles or was your profile given to someone else? Like who picked who first?
I got to pick, which I appreciated.
Nice.
They sent, and they only sent one, which I had asked at the time, which I figured it was only one because, the pickings were slim as far as my preferences. But I asked when I, gave the thumbs up to my coordinator, I was like, so are you going to send mine and someone else's? Like, is this going to be like, they're going to have to pick like, I don't know. I just felt so nervous. And she's like, no. We only send one at a time. I was like, oh, praise, because that just seemed so overwhelming to me to be like
in competition.
Well, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And I feel like it can be hard because what if you like both? And then you're thinking, well, what's the one little thing that's making this one just a little more connected? And yeah.
So you just got the one profile. You said yes. They said yes. Done. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
I was like,
look at you.
I like the profile. I mean, again, it's kind of hard because it's like, everyone's putting their best foot forward. I was putting my best foot forward in my profile and but yeah, I was like, I'm excited. I'm down. I don't see any red flags. They just seem really sweet. So
did they have any? Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say, are they stateside or international?
Yeah. No, they're state. They live in the same state as me, actually, not too far.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we live in the same state as you, Mary.
Yeah, we do.
Did they have any other children? Or was this their first go at it? Okay.
Yeah. Great. This was their first. They have a dog, so she's their baby.
I love that. So sweet. So, okay, so then how many embryos were transferred?
So that was something that my agency had mentioned, and the friend that I had talked to had said, if these are your preferences, just do single embryo.
Okay.
which they were good with that. Actually, the clinic, the fertility doctor was recommended only one, because when I talked to my IPs, they said they were like, we're good with two, but he was like, no, just do one at a time, because then, it can result in multiples. So
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's a lot more
Yeah.
common these days to do one, and so I'm like,
yeah,
Because the
Good.
testing is so great. Like the testing is just so top notch. They know
Yeah.
if the egg's going to be viable, and if all the circumstances around that are just like on par, you're going to have typically a very good outcome. Yes, there's failures. Yes, of course. But then they tweak it a little bit and you go forward and maybe you try again. But yeah, God almighty, one.
Well,
What a beauty.
speaking
Well,
of that though,
oh
Yeah.
yeah.
did it take the first time?
Yes, that's what I was going to say. So the first one was their only normal embryo, and it did not take. Like, it
What do you
had
mean
been
normal?
graded.
Yeah, that's what my
So
question.
again, I should have done my research before doing
You're
this.
good.
So
No, it's okay.
they had one normal embryo, and then they
Okay.
had 3 mosaic embryos,
Okay.
Right.
which
Okay.
it's just, so the test can be inconclusive on the mosaic. It can be a totally normal embryo, but not, it's not confirmed.
Right.
Okay.
So they transferred the single one normal embryo, and that one was unsuccessful, unfortunately. Yeah. But so then the doctor reached out to me and asked, since they were down to just mosaic, he asked, would I be open to doing a double? Which
Okay.
that was something that then I had to talk about, because it was in our contract, a single. But I knew that this clinic, and it was in my contract as well, that if the embryo split to triplets, they would automatically reduce down to twins. Yeah. So
Okay.
I was like, okay, well, this is, this,
Tricky.
that could, that could, one of them could split
Yep.
very easily.
Or both.
Or both. I mean, quads.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was something that, I had to think about. And we were like, the chances are higher of one sticking than both of them sticking and one of them splitting, or both of them splitting.
Right.
So, because the chances of doing one mosaic, I don't remember what the percentage was, but doing a double was just slightly higher than a single normal embryo transfer.
Okay.
And
Okay.
since we were getting down to their, they only had 3 mosaic left. I was like, okay, yeah, I gave him the thumbs up. And so, yeah, we transferred 2 for the second.
And how
And what
many
happened?
took?
It was just once. It was a singleton.
Okay.
Praise
Okay.
be.
I know. My goodness.
I did
My
not want to do twins.
So because they didn't because their testing was inconclusive, do they know the gender beforehand, or was that something that you got to like surprise them with?
Yes. Well, we knew. So the first one they shared with me later, that it was a girl. And she had said it was their only girl embryo. So it was kind of like an extra sting. But I think that she meant only normal girl, because on the day of transfer for the double embryo, the doctor let me know one was a male and one was a female. So it was like, if there's only one baby in there, you guys get to have like a surprise.
Super fun.
Yeah. So, but they wanted to do the early, the IPs wanted to do early genetic testing. And so, I told the mom, because everything is in my name and I had like the portal and all that was going to have the results. So I'd asked her, I was like, do you want, like, we live in a different state. Do you want the information? Do you want to just find out yourself? Do you want me to like send it to someone or something? She's like, no, I'd like to know. So I told her I wouldn't look. And if she wanted to share with me, she would share with me. And she did. It was a little boy.
So cute.
So
That's very nice of you to offer that to them, to put some of the control and the info back on them. That's very sweet.
And well, again, I just feel like it's so important. I've been able to do that 3 times with my own babies. I've had full control of if I find out, if I don't.
Yeah.
And that's just so fun.
Yeah.
And it's something, and knowing for them that this was going to be, their only time. I wanted it to be as much as,
Aww.
yeah.
Very sweet.
very sweet.
Very sweet.
Okay, I have to backpedal because I moved too far ahead. Okay. Meds. Did you have shots? Were you one of these lucky girls who just got to do patches? Like, what was your
I had
protocol?
I had shots. I did not mind them as much, except for the dang Lovenox. That was more uncomfortable to me than
Really?
In the world
yeah.
is that?
It's like a blood thinner.
Blood thinner.
Yeah. And I put it in my stomach. It didn't bother at first, but
Yeah.
the more I did it, it
Mhm.
just, and like you can't massage it, you can't do
Mhm.
anything because then it makes it more bruising and all of that. But it just like when I would put it in, it would hurt. And then as I slowly pushed it in, it burned
Yeah.
and it just was so uncomfortable.
Huh.
Yeah.
I have
It's a
to
teeny,
ask
teeny
then.
needle. Teeny needle.
Yeah.
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 Mhm.
And that bothered me more than the progesterone and
Wow.
oil,
Oh,
the
how
estrogen, all of it.
interesting.
That's
Yeah.
So did
amazing.
you not have to, because you're saying it's a blood, you guys are saying it's a blood thinner.
Mhm.
So did you not take baby aspirin? Was this in place of baby aspirin or no?
No, it was both. So they found when they did like genetic testing and all that stuff on me that I have like they're like it's not a big deal, but we're just going to put you on blood thinners just in case, like a clotting thing.
Mhm.
Which they were like, you should probably know this. You should probably tell
Yeah.
your family. And I was like, oh, okay. Like how big of a deal? And they're like, oh no, it's not a big deal, but just let them know so that they know if they want to get tested.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was
Okay.
on Lovenox until I think like 14 or 16 weeks pregnant.
Oh, so
That one
that
went
was an
further.
incredibly long time. It wasn't just the beginning cycle of it. So yeah, I can
Mhm.
totally understand how that would have bothered you. Yes.
Yeah, yeah, it
Yes.
just, ugh.
Yeah. And the
I'm having
burning.
flashbacks.
Yeah. No
Okay,
fun.
let's move on. Let's move on.
No,
Yeah.
it's fine. But I did do some of my own shots. So we had a phlebotomist friend who lived with us for a while. And so she was all excited. She was like, oh my gosh, I want to poke you. And I was like, are you sure? She's like, yeah. I'm like, it's in my ass. She was like, I don't care. I just
Oh my
want to
gosh,
poke
that's
you.
funny. Oh my
That's awesome.
gosh.
So for the time that she lived with us, she did the shots for me whenever she was home or not at work. And then when she wasn't, I think the first time was during transfer when we went out of town. I told my husband, I was like, you're gonna have to do the shot. And he was like, okay. He gets a little squeamish with blood.
Oh.
And so he did it like
Hot.
just so fast. And I was like, oh wow, you did really good. He was like, I couldn't think about it. All I could think about was like if I was like pissed at you or something. He was like, I couldn't just poke you. It was horrible. And I was like, oh well, you did good.
It was great.
Sweet. Oh,
Oh,
I'm
but
gonna
then
have to
after he
leave.
well,
Sorry.
but then after he did it, and then one of the times he had to close, and then my friend who lived with us was at work, and I was like, well, I guess this is just gonna come down to me,
Yeah.
and I did it, and I was like, I'm not gonna wait for them anymore. I'm just gonna do my own
There you go.
because it
You
was like
go, Mary.
waiting and
More control. I thought it was a big control
Yeah.
issue for me. I didn't want anybody
Yeah.
else doing them. Mm-mm.
Will
I
happily
didn't know.
give up that control to anybody who wants to take it on.
Yikes.
Nope,
Uh,
not a fan.
I somewhat grew up because I have a sister. The little sister who has Down syndrome is also a type 1 diabetic. So I grew up with. I mean, granted, those needles are super teeny tiny, the insulin ones.
Yeah.
But I grew up with like needles and her having to like prick her finger all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was somewhat used to that. So yeah, it wasn't super shocking. The size of the needle was a little alarming at first,
A
but
little unnerving. Mm-hmm.
They're thick
That's going
needles.
where? Oh, yeah.
And if
Exactly.
you mess up that needle, if you don't switch it after you pull it out,
Oh,
yeah.
it's the worst. It's the worst. I learned the hard way. I'd like quadruple check. I'm like, is it the right
girl.
color? Is it the right size? Like it hurts.
Girl.
It hurts.
God.
Okay, so you're pregnant, and so then how does your journey go?
I mean, I feel like it was pretty uneventful as far as like,
That's good.
no complications. Yeah, I mean, we had an insurance change part of the way through, and that was like the biggest fiasco of all.
Yeah.
Because I had go ahead.
Did you get to use your insurance that you currently had? Is that why you're saying you had a change?
Yes. So we
Okay.
had the one that my husband had through his work, which was like super, super surrogacy friendly, apparently. And I had it in my preferences that I deliver at the birth center if the parents were okay with it. And if not, I was like, it's not just my experience, this is theirs. So I'm okay to be a hospital. And, just knowing that a lot of people who are going the surrogacy route they might have had trauma with it. And so again, fully understanding that they might just be like, hell no, we're not doing the birth center, straight to the hospital.
Yeah.
But they were open to it. Like we talked about it. And my insurance was going to do some reimbursement with the birth center. So we were on board as long as I was deemed like low risk by my OB. So I never got to see the midwife because before I was categorized as low risk, my husband changed jobs and changed insurance, and the new insurance was not as surrogacy friendly, and the parents had to take out a separate insurance for me for the gap, like the 2-month gap.
Yeah.
And then we found out that the doctor that I was seeing was not even covered.
No. Wait,
No.
after
Yeah.
you had already seen him?
After
Oh,
we'd seen him like 3 or
no.
4 times, had
They
gotten
wouldn't
ultrasounds.
they wouldn't take that as a extenuating circumstances where you're already, it's continuation of care. They wouldn't.
We're hoping. We are
Oh, you're still
still like
hoping. Okay.
claims are coming in, and I'm trying to
They should
kind of fight them because, well, the hard thing is that, so I was told that he, before we changed, we called and made sure that my doctor was in network, and the hospital that I was going to deliver in was in network. And they were like, yeah. But then 3 months down the road, I get a call from my OB like the day before an appointment, and they're like, oh, we're not seeing that you're in network. And I was like, excuse me, what? Yeah, it was a whole fiasco. So then we switched. Yeah. So then we switched to, by then my husband's new insurance had kicked in, and we found out that that was covered by, or my doctor accepted that, and the hospital.
Okay.
But then the birth center was just out because it was going to be completely out of pocket, and just with the extra expenses.
Yeah.
It was so.
So you did it at the hospital.
Yes, we did it at the hospital.
How did, so I'm assuming that you have a good relationship with your couple.
Oh, yes.
Okay, good. And so, and you said that they're stateside. So do you guys ever meet up during the pregnancy, or like, do you guys talk very often? How did you like keep them involved?
So I think it was like right after the match meeting, right after the day we officially matched, which was the day after, they, we were sent each other's phone numbers, and the mom and I started texting, and we literally texted like every single day, just checking in, like, how are you feeling today? And how's work and all that. So it was rare if we, like, it'd be like, are you okay? We just didn't answer by the end of the day. So we talked a lot. And then with them, they live about like 4.5 hours away. So they came down and visited about 4 times.
Nice.
It was really fun. And I feel like, but that was something that I didn't really expect, as far as, so when they would come to visit, because they didn't know anyone else here.
Yeah.
I myself, this was never any pressure put on by them or by anyone else, just me and my people pleasing ways. I really just felt like I needed to be with them like as much as I possibly could.
Yeah.
Even if I was tired, I just felt kind of bad of being like, they don't know anyone in here, and they've traveled, and they're, all this extra expense literally just to see me and to like hopefully feel their baby. And so that too, of like, is the baby moving? And we'd be like talking and having dinner, and like, this is kind of an awkward time to be like, hey, you want to feel your baby moving? And then he would stop moving, and I was like, oh, dang it. So just like that kind of pressure, whenever I was around them, which again, it was not put on by them. It was just me. And so that was something that I feel like I really learned, and my husband really helped with that, was just kind of putting boundaries on myself, I guess, more. As far as, we'll do like a dinner together, and then, hang out maybe once with the kids. And then after that, it's just kind of whatever I'm up for, hanging out with them. Because they wanted to see our kids, and our kids, they really enjoyed them, but they're also little, and they don't like, they don't like to sit very much. So like we tried the first time we went to like a coffee shop, and they were good. They got a little antsy. Then the next time we tried a park, and I was like, okay, this should be great. Like, you guys are going to, no, the kids were fussing after like 30 minutes at the park. And I was like, oh my gosh, we just can't win.
You got 3 littles. They understand. I mean, I know your IPs for sure understood. And like, they were like, I'm sure they loved every second of it though.
Right. A glimpse of what to come for them.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Let's get it all.
Yeah. But yeah, they're literally the sweetest humans ever. Yeah.
That's very sweet. So then now I'm anxious to know. Okay.
Well, I want to know if they
we covered it all before we get to delivery.
Okay. Have we covered it all?
I think so. I think so, for the most part, because you guys were in contact and everything like that. So how does, because you
Were
went
they here?
early, so how does the
Yes.
delivery day go? What was their plan? Were they gonna come down? If they only live 4 hours away, like, were they gonna come down early?
Yeah, well, so that was the plan was my doctor, my OB was okay to start doing cervical checks at like 37 weeks. And
Okay.
I personally did not. I was okay with 38 weeks because of the situation, wanting to kind of have an idea because I know cervical checks and cervical dilation can not be an indicator at all. Someone can be walking around at like 5 centimeters for like a week
Yeah.
and still not deliver.
Can
So,
you
I wanted.
sorry, because you are in that professional field, can you explain the difference between a cervical check and cervical dilation? Is that what you just said?
Well, it's basically the same. When they do a cervical check, they're just checking how dilated
How
you are.
dilated you are.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes they'll say a fingertip, sometimes they'll say one, sometimes they'll say two, and then you go 2 more weeks and you're still not dilating. You're like, oh my God. So it
Exactly.
can get false hope up there that things are happening and they're really not. So
Exactly. Well,
yeah.
and like with my son, my second one, I went in at it was like my 39 because he was born almost on his due date. It was like my 39-week appointment. So I was 39 in like 3-4 days.
Okay.
And the doctor checked me and he was like, oh, you're not even like effaced enough for me to do a cervical sweep. And I was like, oh my gosh, he's going to come on Christmas. I had him the next day.
Oh,
So he was
funny.
like, you're not going to go into labor for a while. So that's what I mean of like,
wow.
it's not a crystal ball.
Yeah.
No.
You can be not dilated at all and go into labor. You can be walking around at 5 centimeters.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I know, right? It's like, how are you supposed to know? It's so hard.
Yeah.
But so with the 37-week appointment, I did not want to do a cervical check. But I did tell him at 38 weeks, I was okay with that, just so that we could have an idea. If I was already 3 centimeters, I was going to tell the parents, you guys need to come down because I labored pretty quickly. This is my 4th pregnancy, you know?
Yeah.
So their plan was to come down on the day that I turned 38 weeks. They had already booked the Airbnb and all that. Well, on 37 and 5, that Saturday, I woke up at 5 a.m. to a contraction. And I was like, this is bizarre. Like, I've never had this. All my other babies were a contraction would start and then it would intensify. And then by like my first, I had her within 6 hours. My next was like 4 hours and then 3. So it kept getting shorter. So the contraction, I felt it and I was like, okay, maybe this is the start of it. But they didn't intensify and they were still low enough that I could still, like, I went back to sleep and I woke up an hour and a half later and I was like, oh, okay, maybe it was just prodromal labor, like false labor.
Okay.
But they just kept coming and I started timing them. They were like 5 to 7 minutes apart. But again, they weren't intense. I didn't have to stop. I didn't have to breathe through them. So my husband, I sent him to work and I like took my kids to like a birthday party. I was like doing laundry and they were taking showers, all the things. And I always heard of these people like, I'm going to go to Target. I'm in early labor. And me thinking my early labor, I'm like, I don't know how you leave the house in early labor because I'm like already mooing like a cow in early labor. Yeah. So it just went on the whole day. And I really think that my body was holding out for a book club that I had that night.
Oh my God.
That I love my book club.
I mean,
oh my gosh.
We just talk and we eat good food and I hang out with my friends who I love so dearly. And so I was like, over my dead body, am I going to miss this book club? Because I had missed the previous month because I had COVID and that was the first book club I'd ever missed.
Oh.
And I was more upset that I was missing my book club than that I had COVID. And I was like sick as a dog. So I was like, I'm going to book club. And my doula friend is the host of book club. And so I texted her that morning and she's like, do we need to cancel? I was like, no, I have my food, my snacks ready. I am coming.
I love that.
And it was also our 1-year anniversary. So we had like a gift exchange. We were going to paint pumpkins. We had decorated like all the things.
So cute.
So the whole day, my husband is texting me like, so like any updates? And I'm like, dude, like you're stressing me out. I stopped timing them. I'm still feeling them, but they're not intense. And at one point he asked me, he was like, so if you could guess, like, when do you think the baby's going to come? And I was like, honey, don't ask that. So I was like, well, he could come tomorrow or he could come in 3 weeks. I don't know. So stop asking me.
Right.
He
Yeah.
was like, that's the most bullshit answer ever. I was like, well, that's the most bullshit question.
Does the couple know that you're in and out of contractions and kind of timing, and they know?
Yes.
Okay.
So I texted them at like 7:30 because again, they hadn't intensified. I had texted them at 7:30 and was like, hey, I woke up at 5 a.m. with a contraction. This could be prodromal. It's not intensifying. And I just kept updating them like, it hasn't intensified. I'm still feeling them, but they haven't intensified. And I really appreciated that not once did they ask, should we come?
Aww.
Because that, I mean, you guys can imagine how stressful that is, because then it's like, it's
pressure on you to deliver.
Yeah.
Exactly. And like, for me to make the call of, is this the real deal or not? And yes, I'm the one feeling everything, but it's like, this is still my 4th pregnancy and I don't know.
Yeah.
It's still all a gamble, right? Because you just don't know.
They're nothing like your
but at least they aren't international. I'll just throw that out there. Like that's a blessing in disguise, kind of like in this journey, that the fact that like if need be, they could get there really quick. Like
it's not waiting on flights and all of that. They could just hop
in the car. Yeah.
Exactly. So I just I was updating them and they were like, okay, well, our plan is to come Sunday. They said, so the following day, they're like, we're just going to come down Sunday unless things ramp up today. And I was like, great, sounds good.
Fair.
So I texted, so my book club was at 5:30. My husband gets home at like 5. So he's only home for like 15 minutes with me. And I have now come to find that I need to be around people who know me when I'm in labor because I'm in denial.
Oh my God.
So he was only with me for a little bit and he was like, you're having a contraction right now? I was like, yeah, I'm good. I'm not having to breathe through them. I'm fine. He's like, you sure you should still go? I was like, yes, I'm going. I feel good. I want to go to book club. So I go to book club and I'm still having them. Like my friends are looking at me and I started timing them again to get a better track to report to everyone.
Yeah.
And at, I think it was like 6:30, one of my friends looks at me and she's like, you look like you're in some pain right now. And I was like, yeah, they're getting a little intense. I've curled my toes just a couple times. She's like, you need to tell the parents. And then I started crying and I was like, I just don't know. It's so hard to know if it's the right call or not. And she was like, no, you need to tell them.
Better safe than sorry. You would rather just say it and be like, you know what, this is the information I have.
You make the decision if you're coming
with it what you want. Yeah.
Exactly. And so that's what I told them. I was like, some of my friends who really know me are seeing that I'm starting, to be different during contractions. And I've noticed them intensify a bit. So I think it's probably a good thing, good idea to come down. And they were like, okay. Well, at first the mom didn't, it was a group message and the mom didn't respond, but the dad, like in all caps, was like, oh my gosh, I'm at work. I'm going to call her immediately and we'll come. And I was like, okay.
Love it.
So then at about 7 they started getting pretty uncomfortable. And at that point I had already told my sister who was going to be who's going to keep my babies, and she was like, do you want to just bring them? And still I was like, I don't know if it's going to be tonight. I don't want to disrupt their sleep. And she was like, well, if they come tonight, then you don't have to disrupt their sleep. And then you can just pick them up in the morning if nothing happens. I was like, okay. So I call my husband and he's putting them down. And I'm like, why don't you go take them to my sister? But then I remember that I have the car with all the car seats.
Oh.
So I was like, well, dang it. Because I was still planning on staying at book club.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I'm like, we haven't even done the gift exchange. We barely ate a little bit of food. So then I was like, okay, I'm going to have to come home. And once I decided that, then I definitely felt them starting to ramp up. So like, I was like getting my food, like just throwing all the vegetables. Like I was like, here, just take these. I just need my platter. And my friends were like, we need to take you to the hospital? I was like, no, I'm fine. I'm good. I can drive. I'm fine. So I drive back to the house and I'm still okay enough to like take my kids with my sister. And once my husband saw me, he's like, we're going to the hospital right away. I was like, no. I want to do this unmedicated. I know I don't want to go to the hospital unless I have to go to the hospital. Yeah. And he was like, I'm not going to argue with you, but you know how I feel. And I was like, okay, that's fine, whatever. So we take them And I'm normally a chatty person with my family. I literally walked in, I went to the bathroom, and I walked out, and I was like, babe, we gotta go. We gotta go now. So we go, and we're almost home, and I have a contraction that I involuntarily start moaning through. And my husband looks at me and he was like, oh my God, like, we're there. You're like having this baby. And I was like, no, I'm not having the baby, but that was an intense one. Yes, we're going to the hospital.
Oh my gosh. Wow, you do labor quick.
Yeah. So I threw my things, my last minute things. We go to the hospital, and I'm thinking that we're going to make it before ER, because that was like almost right before 9. For some reason, I thought at 9 o'clock they close it. Well, no, because we got there, and I even kept walking through a contraction because I was like, I don't want to go through ER. No, they'd closed the doors at 8. So we went over to ER, and it's like this like older gentleman, like in this little office. And I'm holding my yoga ball. And I walk in, I try and like say everything I need to say before my contraction. I'm like, I'm 37 and whatever. My name is this is my 4th pregnancy. And he's like, hold on, honey, hold on.
Wow.
So I just take my ball and I take a squat, and I'm like, oh, contraction. And he's like, we need a wheelchair. We gotta get her out of here. She's gonna have this baby right now. Yeah, so I got taken straight up to a room, no triage, which I was like, praise be. And I had asked immediately, I said, I know you do cervical checks. Can you please do one right now? Because like I have a dress on, like you can just do it right now. Take my chonies off. Because I need to know to tell the parents. So the nurse checked me, and I was 5 centimeters. And immediately I started crying, and I told my husband, I was like, they're not gonna make it. Because at this point, I had texted them at 7:30 saying, hey, these are getting really intense. Go as fast as you can.
Yeah. Oh, geez.
And they were like, okay, we're dropping. They were going to drive down, but they were dropping their dog off on the way. And yeah, so they were still, I knew that they weren't going to make it. So this was 9 o'clock, and Dave texted them and my husband, and they were like, yeah, we're not planning. Like our estimated time of arrival is like 1 a.m. Yeah. So I was like, no. So had to work through that.
Yeah.
And just feeling like, again, they never said anything. No one said anything. It's just, I feel like we put that on ourselves. And just feeling like I should have told them sooner. How could I not have known?
You did tell them sooner. You did. They could have said, you know what, we are coming. And I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just saying.
No, it's just it's that gamble.
It is.
Yeah.
Because I'm saying right now, had they decided to come, you wouldn't have gone into labor. Because they decided not to come.
Right.
It's just that's just I mean, I know that sounds crazy, but isn't that how the world works? Like we drop our lives and the big thing doesn't happen. We don't drop our lives and we miss out. Like that's
so
just how it works.
It's so true.
And I think it was meant to be, because I know how this ends, and I really think it was meant to be because of what the remainder of the story is.
Let's get to that. So it's 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
And they're on their way.
Yep.
How quick? What's happening? How quick are you going?
It was really intense. So my husband also texted our doula friend, who she was like, oh, I already we were cleaning everything up at book club, kicked everyone out. So book club. So then I'm like, well, dang it. I'm so sorry, guys. Book club ended.
Okay.
Later they were saying, we should paint these things in next book club. They're like, yeah, because we need to paint pumpkins. And I was like, yeah, sorry guys, that's kind of on me.
Oh, it's okay.
And they were like, it's fine. Are you kidding me?
Totally fine.
Okay, so 9 o'clock. So he texts the doula, and she's like, okay, yeah, I'm on my way. The contractions were getting really intense, so much so that the nurse was out of the room, and I told my husband, I was like, hey, I'm gonna have her check me again, because if I'm not 7 centimeters, I'm thinking about getting an epidural. And he was like, okay, that's your choice. And I had gone into it with the thought, trying to be open to that, knowing this is a totally different experience.
Mm-hmm.
I am in the hospital again, and it's really hard when you have that option just right there.
Yeah.
So I told him, I was like, I'm thinking, and then I said, also that might slow it down a little bit. And my husband, knowing me, immediately looked at me and said, that cannot be the reason that you get this epidural. you cannot. I know you don't want that. And I was like,
Yeah.
I know I don't want it, but I was like, just thinking about laying in a bed right now sounds so incredible.
Oh.
And he's like, okay, I will support whatever you choose, but I know you want me to tell you no. I was like, thank you.
Yeah.
But no, I'm getting checked. So at some point, I don't remember when, I think I also in my brain knew everything was progressing so quickly.
Yeah.
That I was like, there's no way I would even get one, even if I had asked for one. And then also knowing that I labor quickly and my past, and knowing that this was kind of following the same thing, I was like, I can still do that. I got this.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think. I think it was I wrote it down. Let's see. My water broke.
Okay.
My water broke at like 9:42.
By itself?
And yes, I was
Okay.
sitting, and it was a lot. I was sitting on the ball with like a Chucks pad,
Yeah.
and it soaked the Chucks pad,
Wow.
soaked down onto the floor and onto like the other side, so much so that later on, one of the nurses thought that like the bag was leaking. She was like, "Oh, is your?" And my husband's like, "No, that's just your water."
Oh my gosh.
He's been through this before, guys. He
Everywhere.
knows.
Yes. It was everywhere, but it was clear. So I was like, yes,
There we go.
praise.
Yes.
I figured with it being early, but still, you never know.
You never know.
Yeah. So my water broke, and I got a glove, and I wanted to see if I could feel his head, because with my third daughter,
It's because she's a doula. That's why. Because you were never gonna see
Jesus.
nobody else.
It's really helpful.
And I just wanted to see if I could feel his head. Okay.
Honestly, I thought one of the nurses was gonna be like, "Excuse me, ma'am, what are you doing?" But no, my nurse is incredible. She was probably just like, I don't know, whatever, you do you, honey, you do you. Yeah, so I got a glove, and I tried to feel his head, because I had done that with my third, and it was so helpful. My midwife was like, see if you can feel her head. And I felt her head, and I literally just kept my hands on her head the whole time. And so with every contraction, I could feel it coming down.
Okay.
And so I remembered that. But at the time, I didn't feel his head. What I did feel, though, which I didn't know until later, was a cervical lip, which I was like, ooh, that's,
not good. So
What's that?
Dilate all the way.
Exactly. Yeah. It's when you're not dilated all the way, like maybe on one side. And so sometimes what they'll do, which I was really appreciative that the nurse did offer at the point of pushing, she offered to reach in during a contraction and push the cervical lip past away so that his head could pass it. Because they usually don't want you to push with a cervical lip, because it can cause swelling and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was it. My water broke, and then I asked for them to check me again after my water broke, because again, I was like, I know it can introduce infection, but they can still do a few after that. And I was like, I need to know. And at that point, I was 8 to 9 centimeters.
Ooh, girl.
I was like, it's showtime.
Unmedicated?
Yes.
Yep.
You're a saint. Ain't no way.
Yikes.
No.
Well, I'm telling you, it is incredible, because you have the ultimate high once the baby's out. You feel all of that, and then it's like, oh, okay, I'm good.
I have a pretty great high with an epidural. I'm pretty good.
Yeah.
I love it.
I'm pretty good.
Oh man. Okay. So so my doula, that was the other thing. My doula, she came, but she was stuck down in ER. There was like some kind of fiasco, because she was there.
Okay.
But my husband, as soon as they checked me, I was 8 to 9. I was like, she's gonna miss it. Where's Mackenzie? She's gotta come.
Oh.
And he was like, she's here. They're just not letting her in. There had been a fiasco down in ER where they were dealing with that. And so no one could tell her, like, okay, like check her in.
Oh.
So they did get her in. I think that was it must have been around 10, because she was there for like maybe like 45 minutes or so before he was born. But yeah, she ran in, and I was like, oh, you're here. But yeah, no, the nurses, I feel like the nurses are really great.
No.
As far as like, no one was, I didn't want to like labor on my back. I wanted to be able to move. And so I was like on hands and knees on the bed, and just like rocking and all the things. And my nurse was just like, yeah, no, girl, like, you do you. You're doing great. Keep going, honey.
Well, after the whole glove thing, she was like, this girl knows what she's doing. Like, we're just going to let her do her own thing. She's got this.
Well, they thought with how fast it was going, because my doctor was not available. His on-call was not available. And so they ended up having to, at the very last minute, they pulled the doctor from ER and had him come up. but they thought it was going to be a nurse assisted birth. So at one point I open my eyes and I look around, and I'm like, who the hell are all these people? I didn't invite them.
Wow.
It's just lined with like nurses all around the room. And
Wow.
yeah, so I found out later that that's what it was. It was because they thought, so once the doctor came in, he was there for like 15 minutes. They were like, okay, you got this. We're going to go.
Okay, hold on. Quick question. So aren't you on labor and delivery floor or no?
Yeah.
But there's no on-call doctor to come and like assist you?
Apparently not. Or he was probably like the on-call doctor
busy?
for labor and delivery was probably with another birth. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't even know. I mean, I was like, whoever can catch, because at one point it was earlier on, one of the nurses, because I had been like kind of instinctually just kind of pushing at the end of a contraction, which also my nurse didn't say anything, which I appreciated. Usually they're like, you know, don't push. So one of the other nurses was in there, and she heard me kind of like go like push through, and she was like, oh honey, you can't be pushing yet, we haven't checked you. And once the contraction was over, I looked at her and I was like, you can catch this baby, I can catch this baby, I'm not stopping pushing. Like, don't, I can't. Don't tell me not to push. Like,
Good
I'm
for
like,
you, Mary.
you can't help it.
You can't. You can't.
It's like trying to hold in a sneeze.
Yeah.
Gosh.
But like
And if it
10 times
helps.
worse. Like there's just no way to hold back on a push. Thanks though.
Yeah. Nice try. So I was 8 to 9. And they had asked me to get on my back, but I was like, can I try side lying? So like pushing on your side, holding one leg up.
Okay.
And I tried that, but it didn't really help me anymore because I felt like I couldn't get like good leverage. Yeah. So I consented to laying on my back and holding my knees. But the doctor comes in, and I just hear him saying like, I can help you. I can make this go faster. And like through my contraction, or after my contraction was in, I was like, I don't want an episiotomy. Don't give me an episiotomy.
No.
And he was like, no, not an episiotomy. And I had a contraction, and I was like, what do you want? How are you gonna
right?
You tell me. And he's like, well, I'm just gonna tell you to push. I'm gonna tell you to push the contractions.
Okay.
And I was like, dude, I am. But my husband said he looked at the doctor, and he said the doctor looks so dumbfounded. Like, I'm telling you I can help you. Like, why are you telling me no?
Wow.
Like, because I know what you might want to do.
Right.
Yeah, that's where my brain went. I was like, absolutely not. I hate that that's even still like allowed. It should not be allowed.
He wasn't thinking that, was he? No,
he said no, but
still,
a lot of the time, I mean, like I said, I had witnessed with one of my clients like get an episiotomy without consent, without even being informed, and it did not seem like it was needed.
I had one without consent and not being informed. Sucked. Didn't have to happen. Right.
Absolutely not.
Unmedicated birth. I was great. It was an hour delivery. 1 hour. I did not need a goddamn episiotomy. But whatever.
Well, how did he help you? He just said push?
Push. Yeah, he was just going to tell me to push more. Basically, he was going to tell me to do what's called purple pushing, which is it's just like, it's basically what they tell you. So you hold your breath and you push. You take a deep breath and you push. Purple?
Right. Is it because you turn purple?
Yeah. Because you're holding your breath.
Awful name for a push ever.
Kennedy, you push babies out in like 1.5 pushes, so you don't get to the purple push.
I'm just saying, a purple push? How sad of a name. Let's call it something else.
Push. So they're blue. I don't know. Great.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah, they probably stay away from blue because it's like blue's not good.
Purple.
We'll go with purple.
God, so ridiculous.
Sad. Okay. Anyway, a purple push it goes.
Yeah. So that's what I was like, okay, in the past, I wanted to do more instinctual pushing, which I had already been doing for probably like 30 minutes, just kind of giving a little push to kind of relieve the pressure at the end. Yeah. Basically just what my body was already doing. I was allowing it to do what it needed to do. Sure. So what he's telling me, because, I also don't want to tear again. And I know at the end in the past, when I've delivered my baby, I was in a pool, a water birth. So there was, more stretching was able to happen and all of that with being in the water. But with my other 2 that were in the hospital, the doctors, they usually tell you pause, slow down, and they kind of stretch a little bit. They'll use like oils or some kind of lubricant. So I'm like, okay, you're the doctor, you're the one down there. You tell me when I need to slow down, because if not, you're telling me to push, I'm just going to push. Yeah. And I pushed and he shot out. like, I think my husband said maybe 3 or 4. I thought 2 contractions, but my husband was like, I think it was 3 or 4. But his head and his body all just shot right out.
Gosh.
Wow. Did you tear? No?
No, I
Yay.
didn't tear. Yeah, because I was like, ooh, if I tore, honey, and you were telling me just to keep on pushing.
Right.
But yeah, no tears,
Yay.
which was very great.
Yay. So baby
I was
boy
very
was
thankful.
healthy.
Yes, he was healthy. Oh, and that was the other thing. So we knew, my husband, had been texting the parents the whole time and telling them like, oh, she's pushing. And it's funny, I was looking back because he was texting from my phone. And they had asked, can we FaceTime?
Right.
And my husband's response was, yes, but Mary is very vocal right now. Just a heads up.
So funny.
I'm mooing and grunting and growling, and like of all the things, the most sore thing was my throat the next few days, just from like the low guttural sound.
Did the doctor let them FaceTime in?
No, they didn't.
Yeah.
And we tried, I
They're
figured
very weird about that. Yeah.
with once the baby was out, and we tried, like the charge nurse was in there and she was like, no, we don't allow FaceTime because of whatever. But then she said, but I can check if you really want me. And I had a contraction. I stopped and I was like, yes, please check. Call who you need to call, because this is a special circumstance. They need to be able to see this. And she came back and she was like, no. So as soon as I started like the pushing, where I was holding the purple pushing, I told my husband, I was like, call them, hurry, so that they can hear his cries. And so I got to hear, and all the because it's kind of chaotic right when it happens, because you have the high of like, oh, it's done. And but I got to hear them being so excited and hearing their boy. And something that we had talked about beforehand, because they had wanted to do skin to skin. And we'd even talked about like one of them maybe wanting to catch the baby. Like we had talked with my OB beforehand. Yeah. Like the dad was like, I don't know. But the mom was like, I'm ready. If you're not, I'm going to be ready down there.
That's cute.
If my surrogate can take a glove and feel his head, I can catch my own baby. That's exactly what we're doing.
Yeah. That's so cute.
Oh man. So I knew they had wanted skin to skin, but thankfully I had asked them, it had been less than a week before was their last visit. And I'd asked them, if you guys on the off chance don't make it in time, what do you want to happen with him? Do you want him to be wrapped up in an isolette and for you guys to be the first ones that touch him? Do you want me to do skin to skin? Like whatever you guys want, I will make sure happens. And they said, no, we're good with skin to skin. We know it has many benefits. And the mom was like, I know I'm the mom. I'm not worried about any of that. And I was like, oh my gosh, thank you. Cause I'm down. I'm okay to do skin to skin. Wow. And so so they put him on my stomach, and then I did skin to skin. And as soon as he was up on my chest, my husband was able to FaceTime, and so we held it right up to them. And it was so sweet. Whenever he was so alert, his eyes were open, and he cried a little bit, but he was just like kind of looking around. Yeah. And whenever they talked to him on the phone, he would like turn his head and look at them. And I was like, guys, he hears you. It was awesome. So precious. It was so precious. God.
Is anybody videoing that or no?
No, okay. We didn't get to. I asked my doula, so she was taking pictures. She got lots of pictures.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Yes, and I was like, you can take pictures of whatever. I don't care. I just want pictures. Yeah. So we did that, and then we had also talked about nursing, because my plan was to pump, and their plan was, as long as I'm ready to pump in our contract, they're wanting the milk. And so that was something else we had talked about was nursing. And she knew, the mom had mentioned that she knew that it helps with like milk supply, establishing it and getting it going faster. So that was something that we had talked about, was if it's needed or available, then they'd be fine with that. So I nursed him for like an hour and a half. And then once they told me that they were in the hospital, like downstairs, I took him off and I was like, here, wrap him up. And then I got to hand him their boy.
That's sweet.
That's adorable. Right. God, that's adorable.
Yeah. So it really,
best of all of it. And none of that was intentional. None of it. It just happened that way. And
yes, it really was. It really was, because as much as I wanted them to be there
Mhm.
so much, and was so sad that, they didn't make it, I really got like all of these different highs. I
Mhm.
got the high of him being out, which was the ultimate high.
Yeah.
Being
With
done.
no meds, because you are a rock
You go,
star.
girl. Right there. Bow down. Bow down.
Oh.
Oh, woo.
No.
Amazing.
But yeah, so that was a high.
Yeah.
And then getting to hear his cry was a high.
Sweet.
Getting to see them on on FaceTime, seeing their boy and like seeing his head turn, and then ultimately handing him
Yeah.
to them.
Wow.
And seeing that
What was their
unfold was
reaction when
just
you handed him?
beautiful.
Were they just in puddles, or were they just in awe?
I think they were more in awe. They weren't crying. I think they had also had all their tears, because it was like 2.5 hours from when he was born to when they were there.
What, can you
So-
imagine what's going on in that car? Can
Oh,
you
they're
imagine?
calling, you know what
Honking
to get there.
horns
They're
and
like,
yelling out windows, man. I would have been unbelievable. That's so
Right?
cool.
I would
Yeah.
have broken
But-
every law. And if a police officer pulled me over, I would have been like, this is the circumstance. You gonna escort me? Like, what's going on?
That's
Like,
I got a
cool.
baby to get to.
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, but we did. We were able to FaceTime with them for like almost an hour, I think.
Nice.
Until I could see that he was kind of rooting around and stuff and all that. And I was like, okay, guys, I think I think he's a little hungry. And so they were like, okay, we'll let you do that. I was like, I'm fine. I nurse in public, but like, I don't know, that angle might have been a little awkward.
Yeah, it would have been cute.
Yeah, so it was beautiful.
Aw.
Absolutely beautiful.
So when do you go home, and do they get their own room at the hospital? How does that work?
Yes. So we had requested for a separate room. But I had also told them, earlier we had talked about what, I left it up to them. It was on our preference from the agency, of what everyone would want immediately postpartum and longer term postpartum.
That's nice.
Yeah, it wasn't really, because then everyone was on the same page.
Yeah.
And we filled it out together one of the times that they visited.
Nice.
Because that was on my side, was like, do I want them in the room? And I was like, I feel like I can't answer this without talking to you guys, because I said, like, you guys are welcome in my room as long as you want, but I don't want you to feel like you have to be in my room.
Right.
And the dad was so sweet. He was like, if you're okay with us being there, we want to be there. Like, we want you to see our reaction. Like, you're a part of this journey too.
Very sweet.
And I was
My
like, oh my
dad.
gosh, yes,
Wow.
please.
Wow.
I want to see it.
Cute.
So we stayed together until I was transferred to postpartum, which was, I don't know, it was maybe like 2 in the morning.
Oof, goodness, you need sleep.
Yeah. Well, no, I feel like after late, I was on a high. I was like, I can't sleep. Yeah. So we were transferred around like 2:30 in the morning. And they got a room right next to us, which was lovely. And, I told them, especially with nursing and like trying to get colostrum, I told them, just call me if you need, or text me if you want to head over. I'm available. I was like, I'm probably not going to sleep much tonight. So just, let me know. And they were in my room more than they were in their room. Like, the nurses would come over and be like, oh, here you guys are. We were looking for you.
Funny. Aw.
Yeah. And then I went home the following night. It was like 11 o'clock, but I was like, I want to sleep in my own bed.
Yeah.
And so some of the nurses were like, why are we sending her home at 11? And they were like, she requested it.
Oh.
And I was like, yes, please. And at first they told the parents that they were going to get to leave too, but they ended up not. They wanted to check his levels again and all of that. So they were discharged the following morning. And then they brought him straight over again to nurse and to get anything that I had collected. And yeah. And then while they were in town for 4 or 5 days. They would bring him over a few times a day to nurse. And yeah, it was so fun.
Sweet.
So because they brought him over. So how were your children's reactions? Or are they too young? It's like, whatever.
Oh no, okay. So we had, like, from the moment I had decided that I was going to do it, I had already, like, not even the moment I decided, like, when I knew my husband was on board, I started like kind of laying the groundwork of like, so this is what surrogacy is. And what do you think about this? What if I was a surrogate? And my it was so funny. She was having a conversation with one of her nephew or one of her cousins. And and they're done. My sisters, you know, they're not having any more kids, and her kids know it. And so they were having a little conversation in the back of the car one time, and my nephew said, "Oh yeah, you know, we're not having any more kids." And my mom was, and Ellie, my daughter, was like, "Oh yeah, we're not having any more kids either, but my mom's pregnant with someone else's kid, and it's kind of not fair."
Oh,
Kind of not fair. Like
wow.
she wants a
She wanted
sibling
the
again.
baby?
Oh my god, how cute.
So I was a little worried because before we had told them, and before I was actually pregnant, she had said something about like, "Mom, there's an empty spot in the car next to me. Like, we could still have another kid." And I was
Oh
like,
my gosh.
"No, you know, me and Daddy, we're done. We gave you 2 siblings. You have lots of cousins." So I was a little nervous when I did tell her, but she was so excited. She was so incredibly excited. We got like books to explain to them, and yeah, it was incredible. They would talk to the baby and be like, you know, "Your mom and dad love you so much," and they know the parents' names, so they would say their names and sing like little songs to them.
That's
And
adorable.
yeah, it was something I really wanted to educate them and
Yeah.
show them, you know, just one of the many beautiful ways that a baby can come into this world.
Right.
And yeah, it was really cute because I dropped my son off at school one of the days, and one of the little girls, it was when I was still really pregnant, one of his classmates kind of looked at my stomach, and then she looked at me, she looked at Bear, and she looked at my stomach again, and she like whispered to Bear, she's like, "Does your mom have a baby in her tummy?" And he like so nonchalantly was like, "Yeah, but it's not ours. She's a surrogate."
Oh my god, see, kids are amazing. Like
cute.
people don't really understand. If you explain it right, which most surrogates do,
Yep.
they
Yes.
They
don't
get it.
care. They're like, yeah,
No.
whatever, she's pregnant.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And the little girl was like, "Okay."
And they
Yeah.
got
So of course I was like,
closure.
"Full surrogate." Yeah. And I got to explain a little bit to the little girl. Yeah, and then one, my daughter too. My daughter was so sweet. She started Girl Scout, and she had said that they were talking about like bravery or like thoughtfulness or something. And my sister, who took her to Girl Scout, said, she was like, "Hey, Ellie raised her hand and said, my mommy should get a badge for that because she has had 3 kids and she's now pregnant with someone else's baby for them so that they can have a kid." I was like, "Oh my gosh."
Wow.
That is
I would have just given her
sweet.
all the badges. Here you go. You got them all.
I
Every
would
single
have bought all the cookies from her. Like,
golly.
Yeah.
so
See,
sweet.
that's
That's so
the
sweet.
way it should be, right? That's the
Yes,
way it should
yeah.
be.
So, and even my 2-year-old now, whenever she sees me pumping, she always says, "Oh, is that for baby?" And she says his name. And I'm like, "Yeah,
Aw.
that's for him."
Aw.
And then she'll say the parent's name. And I'm like, "Yeah, that's for them."
That's
Very sweet.
That's very sweet.
And
Yeah.
they got
So,
to see the baby, right? They got to see him when he
yes.
came over and stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Well, they
that's-
came to the hospital. That was something because I
Oh,
wasn't
they
sure how much
did.
they were actually going to come to the house.
Yeah.
All of it was kind of like, you know, whatever you're open to, all of that. So yeah, they came to the hospital and the parents said they were fine. They were fine with that. They were fine with them holding them. So I presented that to each of them, and
Yeah.
my oldest and my youngest both were adamant that they were like, "Oh, I want to hold him."
Aw.
So we have pictures. We have pictures of
So cute.
them holding him, and the pictures of all of us together.
Oh, precious.
So, Mary, question: do you
Yes.
feel that your children are negatively affected by surrogacy?
Not in the slightest. I feel it has only been a positive 100%. I mean, they have new family, like
Yeah.
literally we're
Yeah.
family with each other now.
That's
Mhm.
the sweetest. It's the best.
Yeah, I love it.
And they're probably going to see this little guy. Like you guys are.
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
My son, Bear, one of the times they came to visit was like already making plans with the dad for them to come and visit for their son's first birthday.
Oh my
So I was
god.
like,
So cute.
no, Bear. Like we will go visit them.
I
They
love
don't
it.
come to us for his one
Yeah.
year.
I love it.
It was just that one time, like that one year where they would come to us. Now it's our turn to go to them.
Exactly.
Aw.
They've come enough.
That's
So,
cute.
so are you hooked and want to do it again, or are you like? I know this was recent, so you're like, I don't know.
Okay, so I went into the whole process of like, would I want to do it again? Trying to remember all of the uncomfortable parts and be like, mark it down, Mary, mark it down.
So funny.
I think that I'm open to do one more. But my husband, that's the other thing.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I think he will be on board. At the time, he's like, this literally just happened. Give me
Sure.
a couple months.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that's
fair.
fair. That's fair. But
yeah.
but you could do another one. You haven't had all the
Maxed
pregnancies yet.
Well, does your agency have a max out amount?
Honestly, I don't remember. Everywhere that
Not
or a lot of places I've heard it's 5. So I
It's
would
not an
have one
agency
more.
thing. Yeah, it's a
Going to
clinic.
clinic.
It's a clinic thing. Oh, sorry. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's anywhere between 5 and 6,
6.
depending
Yeah.
depending on
There
the
you go.
clinic. But you
So yeah, we'll see. Maybe.
do you have any advice for anybody who would say, "Hey, Mary, I want to be a surrogate"?
Advice. Let me see. What did I write down? Because again, I feel like my memory is horrendous, but if I can think on it.
Hey, you just had a baby. You have an excuse. I have no excuse. I just have a
And by the
bad
way,
memory.
you look absolutely phenomenal for like
You
literally.
do- oh my gosh.
Unbelievable.
And you came on, let me just shout this out.
Yeah.
You came on the Friday Facts after you had a baby. And we were like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I was literally laying in bed without a bra, like just chilling in my PJs,
Yeah.
looking a hot mess.
Look at her.
living the best life. It's all good.
Exactly.
Living
Exactly. Let's see. Okay. So I would say 1, have a tribe that supports you.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, it's a journey and you don't know really, any of the ups and downs. You want to have people that you can be totally comfortable with, because I feel as surrogates, it can be sometimes hard to complain because it's like, we chose this, so we signed up for it.
Yeah.
But it's like that doesn't make what you're feeling any less valid. It still can be a really sucky day.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you need those people that you can be honest and be like, hey, today sucks. It's really hard being pregnant right now. So have a tribe. Find a great therapist. And find them beforehand so that they can be there. Yeah. So they can be there the whole journey, because you don't want to have like, hey, I need to see a therapist and I don't know of one. And there's a long wait list, because Lord knows most of us have enough stuff to talk about to fill in.
Yeah. Did you have that in your contract that you could get therapy paid for? Did you just do that on your own? You did.
Yes. Well, I had already decided before contracts and all of that I was like, I'm going to find a therapist that's specific to like birth, postpartum, all of that stuff.
Great.
But it was in my contract that was to be reimbursed.
That's great.
Let's see, rest postpartum. It can be hard when you don't have a baby to remind you to stay in bed, but you still need to. You are still healing. You have a large wound inside, even if you have no tearing and it's an ideal birth, you are still healing. So rest.
Good job.
And then the last one I would just say is allow time and like a safe space to process everything. And just know, that one day might be really good, the next day might not be. And what I mean by that more is like just postpartum hormones. All of, postpartum just kind of takes all of our fun little quirks and like turns up the dial like to 100.
It does.
So anything that like you're already normally kind of struggling with a little bit is going to be amped up. So any of the struggles that I've had have not been, I do not want a baby. I do not want a baby next to me. I do not, none of that. None of it is surrogacy related. It is all just postpartum, because postpartum is a bitch and it will take you for the ringer. So just allowing for that. Have your good cries, have many. Again, go back to your tribe of people who will support you and love on you.
When's the next book club?
November. I think it's like November 16th. I don't remember, but I'm not missing it.
And now you have lots to share at your next book club too.
So
yes. We will talk it up.
Yes.
This was a great story.
Thank you so much, Mary. It's
good
always
for having
wonderful to talk with you. Elegant, and I just love it. I love talking to you. I want you to be my doula. I'm like, all right,
girl, I'll be there. I mean, I don't know about the drive, and you said you labor pretty quickly, so
I don't think
I make it.
The earliest labor I've had is 12 hours.
Okay.
So it's well. Thank you so much, Mary. Honestly, it was wonderful speaking with you.
Thank you so much. This was so fun. It was like all the good feels, all the things you want that a surrogacy to be. Like I just see like
Yeah.
they all just converged right there with your
Yeah.
story, all of it.
Your
Yeah.
story helps me chug along. I'm like,
Yeah.
all right.
Okay, well, I have to tell
Oh.
you one more thing that
Yeah.
I just remembered that literally, like, I was telling my therapist it, and it like made me start crying.
Aw.
Like the last thing that the dad said to me. So like we met at a coffee shop and we were giving hugs and all that stuff. And the last thing he said to me was, he was like about his son. He said, he's always gonna know who you are, and you're always gonna be his Mary. And I was like, it's gonna make me cry right now.
Oh,
That's so sweet.
Yeah.
awesome.
So those are the intended parents that I have. They are
Yep.
absolutely
Without a doubt.
incredible.
Yep.
There are so many wonderful intended
So many.
parents out there that are just like that. Like,
Yes.
Yeah.
and we hear these stories
We
as
do.
as often as we should.
Yes.
Like we hear more good stories than we do, sad stories. So
Which
I'm
is
so
great.
happy that this worked out for you
Oh,
and for them
so
and for
excited.
everybody. And like, congratulations,
Yeah.
you did it.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you, ladies.
Awesome. Thank you so
Bye.
much, Mary, for taking the time.
Yes.
Of course. Thank you. You guys have a good night.
Hey,
Thank
too.
you. You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Oh,
Oh.
dream journey.
I would do one surrogacy if it could turn out like that, right? Like, and not do multiples. If I could have one like that.
Dream
Like,
journey.
oh, so nice.
So
You're
sweet.
gonna always be his
From
Mary.
his Mary.
What?
And if you're like, you could take that religious or not religious.
well, just because, yeah.
But I'm just saying
But
it has
they-
so many meanings
Yeah,
and like
right.
such like a heartfelt message behind it that
And
like
from the dad, from the
I know,
dad,
from the
right?
dad.
Not from the mom. Like the mom is the one with the
No,
usually fuzzy feelies, but from the dad.
sent- Have you noticed
So cute.
like her intended dad had lots of sweet things to say?
He did. He did. I think they were just open for the process and just
Totally.
yeah.
They
It
just
was
wanted
so,
a baby.
yeah. And they were all converged for this one momentous thing, and it happened, and it just created such a bond between all of them. I wish that for everyone. I really do. I wish it for everyone.
I think it'd be amazing. And I do
Yeah.
think it happens more often than
Yes. Agreed.
not. And
Agreed.
so that makes me happy to know
Yeah.
and to
Agreed.
hear it time and time again. But this story was really sweet.
Such a sweet story.
Such
Yeah.
a story. Well, thank you so much again for sharing your story,
Yes.
Mary. If anybody else has any stories or questions that they would like to ask, please feel free to reach out to me on Instagram at Stop.Sit.Surrogate.
It's been another edition of Stop, Sit, Surrogate with Kennedy and Ellen. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.